Hello, it's been a while since I've done a proper video. For this one, I want to share some tips on how I do expressions while drawing in Clip Studio Paint. Clip Studio Paint is an art program used by artists all over the world. It comes with plenty of tools to help ease your drawing process, and even has an asset store full of more tools made by other artists. It's available on desktop, Android, and Apple devices, and comes with a free trial, so check it out if you'd like. Back to the video, I want to first put out a disclaimer. This is not the one right way to do expressions. This is just my own thought process on how I do them and ways I try to do them effectively. Really, you can take these tips and use and adjust them in whatever way you'd like. I'm no professional, so please don't take any of my words as professional advice. I'm learning just like you are. With that out of the way, let's actually start. First, I'm just going to draw out some really simple expressions. Nothing fancy, this can just serve as a warm-up as we go further. Neutral, happy, sad, angry, and scared expressions. Now that I have that down, I want to draw them again, but with more exaggeration. Exaggeration can really help with anything in art, specifically with expressions. I either exaggerate for practical effect or comedic effect. With the expressions I'm drawing right now, they're more on the comedic side. Because it's comedic, I do them in a more cartoony style. You can see that it got more exaggerated with these ones compared to the first batch. The features are more unrealistic, there are more wrinkles, etc. These things can help push an expression further. Don't be afraid to use them. Now, I'm gonna be drawing each expression multiple times, all exaggerated differently. I'm doing this just to show that expressions can be full of range, and even be mixed in with one another. They can be very complex, so it's definitely tricky getting the exaggeration right for me. From my own experience, it can sometimes take multiple attempts until I'm satisfied with one. As I'm drawing, I try to keep in mind to not over-exaggerate a face. I mostly keep this in mind when doing more serious art, but I tend to let loose a lot more when the tone is sillier. Over-exaggerating isn't exactly bad, but it can sometimes feel like too much for me. There's no specific way that I'm able to tell if something is too much, it's just kind of a gut feeling. If your gut tells you yes, I can feel this, then keep going. That really is the goal here, making yourself and others feel what the character in the artwork is feeling. You can see with a lot of these again, I'm adding wrinkles to push the expression more. Adding them to laughs or smiles, crying, or anger can help a lot and give more personality. Don't worry about making it ugly. If the expression feels lacking to me, then sometimes I'll just edit it quickly with the lasso tool and adjust it accordingly with transform. Other times, it's helpful to use the liquify tool as well. There's a bunch of different settings for both, so I'd recommend trying them both out to see what will help the most with adjusting the expression. Another thing that can help with expressions is the body language of the character. You probably already know the basics, like when a character is sad or scared, they tend to be more tense and closed in on themselves, while if they're happy, they may be more relaxed, or doing something else like jumping or kicking their feet. There's a lot of different paths to go in terms of body language assisting the facial expression. For example, if your character is trying to hide or be subtle about how they truly feel, trying to show that feeling in their body language, instead of their face can also be effective. If you have some trouble with creating poses, you can always drop a 3D model onto your canvas and try to pose it in your own way. Like I mentioned before though, you can also find readily posed 3D models in the asset store. I wouldn't consider it cheating, it's more like using the resources you have to your advantage. I've mentioned it already, but again, emotions are very complex. There's a lot of range, and they can mix with one another. This spectrum of course reflects onto the expression of a character. These combinations and differing extremities make for more complicated and interesting expressions. I would recommend just trying a bunch of different combos and experiment. It's a fun exercise. It's important to remember these complexities when drawing expressions. Most times, I remember pretty easily, but if it's something from a specific scene or given scenario, I tend to get lost in drawing and forget what the level of emotion actually is. I end up with multiple attempts, and then choose which one seems best. There's absolutely no shame in that either. Having multiple options helps a lot. Having these different options can open up more potential for the expression. Going back to a previous point, characters can express emotion in different ways. It all depends on their personality, who they are, what their story may be. I personally think this is the selling point of an expression. Of course, this all depends on the situation still. Like here for example, these characters are just taking a group picture. Most of these guys are very cheerful in nature, just in different ways. And one tends to be more aloof, so all their expressions reflect this. The first person, Chance, is the aloof one and isn't crazy about up-close picture taking. Next is Mika, who's the most cheerful and cutesy of the bunch. The third is Dex, who is far more mellow and laid back, but is also considered to be a jokester type. And lastly, Andy, an all-around sweet guy, mimicking Chance's face just because he thought it'd be funny. If a character is more timid or quiet, maybe have them emote in more subtle ways. Maybe they express themselves more freely with specific people or specific situations. That kind of rule can apply with cheerful outgoing characters as well, maybe even in the opposite direction. You can also take into account the anatomy of a character's face when doing expressions. Think about if a character has dimples, round cheeks, heavier wrinkles, anything really. It's just another thing that can really push more personality and uniqueness. I love thinking about these kinds of features when drawing new characters. I think it makes character building very personal and fun. There's a lot more different ways you can push an expression in art, colors, composition, heck, even in the way you do your lines. Figuring all that out and stylizing it in your own way is part of the fun. Color adjustments like gradient maps and tone curve are ones I usually use when I want to improve the color moods. If you want to improve the line work, you can make a vector layer for your line work and change the brush texture or shape of the lines. Just make sure your lines were already on a vector layer, of course. Anyways, that's all the tips I had to give. I hope they help, even just a little. Fun expressions are one of my favorite things to draw, so it was nice to get to talk about them, and to be able to draw so many. They were very fun exercise. Thank you so much again to the people behind Clip Studio Paint for sponsoring this video. This program is what I use every day to draw and do commission work, and all the tools it has to offer really help speed up my process. Some of my favorite tools to use are the Lasso Fill, Liquify tool, and, as I mentioned before, the Gradient Maps and Tone Curve for color adjusting. I use so many others that I found on the Asset Store too. If you want to check it out for yourself, I've left links in the description below. And if you want to support me by buying some prints, or maybe checking me out on Patreon, those links will be down there as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Peace sign emoji.